My Hero Academia chapter 349, the focus is on Deku's new and final one-for-all quirk. Possibly the strongest quirk there is. So strong in fact that no one can control it. At the end of this Boku no Hero Academia review, we talk about one of the most emotional moments. Also, only small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The new My Hero Academia chapter 349 starts with woohoo, a beautiful color page showing Rabbit Girl next to Bakugo. Then on the first page we see Superman flying over the sea. Deku has literally become insanely strong. He really flies like a rocket straight at Shigaraki. What's going on with all the main characters in Battle Shonen manga these past few weeks? Literally everyone is becoming extremely powerful. Deku then reveals that he uses the quirk Float, which allows him to fly, and in combination with Fajin creates this propulsion. For those who have forgotten what this quirk Fajin does, it's basically based on kinetic energy through the repetition of regular motions, which allows Deku to then store that energy for later use, such as creating propulsion while flying. And for those who didn't pay attention in school, such as myself who literally had to look what kinetic energy is, here it is easily explained. Kinetic energy is basically the energy an object has due to its motion. As long as an object is moving at the same speed, it will maintain the same kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is calculated by the square of the velocity. Nah, I'm just messing with you, as if we are going that deep into physics for a manga review. But anyway, so by Deku's movement, he's basically just storing energy. That's it. And so when he releases that energy while he's floating, along with his air force to keep balance, that's how he becomes this jet. But apparently he's still too slow. Then when Deku wanted to go beyond his current limit, probably intending to activate One for All at 100%, the second user appeared and told him to calm down, because Deku was losing his cool and starting to make muddled decisions. And damn, I just can't stop thinking how much this man resembles Bakugo. I'm telling you, the two of them must be connected somehow, even if they are only related. But anyway, he then asks Deku if he also happened to try to activate his quirk. He uses the term meta ability because he comes from a time when quirks were still called meta abilities. I think that's a brilliant little detail that Horikoshi has included that shows that he really does understand his own story, not just one-dimensionally, but in all possible facets. Perhaps the fact that the term meta ability was highlighted even has a deeper meaning that goes beyond simple detail. Perhaps the fact that his quirk is one of the oldest quirks ever awakened, which Horikoshi intended to highlight by using the term meta ability, is important alongside the details he revealed in this chapter. We know that the quirk singularity states that quirks become more complex and powerful over time, so that at some point in the near future they become too complex and powerful to handle, as the human body evolves more slowly than quirks. If we take this information and reverse it, we conclude that all quirks, or at least the majority of quirks we know now in the present, have evolved through several generations to what they are today. And so we can conclude that the first quirks were all relatively simple in terms of their complexity and general idea as well as power level. This is literally the reverse of the quirk singularity theory, and that gives us a good idea of the second user's quirk. But of course we can't ignore the fact that two of the first quirk ever awakened are also the most complex, All for One and One for All. So I will take that with a grain of salt, especially because the quirk also evolved together with One for All. More to that in a moment. For now, let's go ahead and see what else the second user of One for All has to say about his quirk. After asking Deku if he ever tried to use his quirk, he seemed to be referring to the time when the war started, and Deku said that he did indeed try. I tried to go through the chapters quickly to find something like a little clue Horikoshi might have planted that we didn't understand at the time the chapters were published, but I couldn't find anything that indicated the quirk use with an effect we haven't seen before. So let me know in the comments if you find anything and I will include it in our next review. Also, the way Deku answered with a strange and embarrassed yes clearly shows the danger and seriousness of this quirk. The second user of One for All made it very clear that Deku shouldn't have done that, since he told him to use his quirk only as a last resort. So this shows how crazy this quirk really is. It could be so powerful that Deku would hurt himself, or maybe it's just there to escape, but then again has severe side effects. Both are definitely possible, especially if we consider that Deku wanted to use this quirk to get to Shigaraki faster. Then it might have something to do with speed. But Deku Deku could also have been trying to use it against Toga, or perhaps when he was facing All for One. We can't really tell when exactly he tried to use it, and so it's difficult to understand what exactly this power can be used for. But we have more information. The second use of One for All says that after his quirk mixed with One for All, his quirk was significantly strengthened. And as a result, his quirk even turned into a very useful but special kind of power. Something far beyond what it used to be. And not only that, but far beyond their control. And then we see a locked door that could be the door we saw in the realm of the previous users of One for All. Opening that door would likely release that quirk, which apparently can't be controlled after it evolved into what it is now. And that sheds a whole new light on this quirk. So the reason why the second user of One for All might have warned Deku to use this quirk and only recommended it as a last resort might not be because it's too powerful or might have side effects, but because it cannot be controlled. So that activating this quirk might not even necessarily become an advantage to the heroes. Maybe it's luck, maybe it has something to do with the environment, time or space. Really anything that might mess up with Deku, his friends, the world, and everyone he loves without him really wanting or being able to control it. I personally think with the information we have, it's pretty hard to predict exactly what the power might be. We know that we have the time travel theory, and we have the explosion theory if Bakugo and the second user are related. However, here we must remember that Bakugo's quirk explosion is a mixture of the quirks of his parents, acid and glycerin, and when you combine the two, the chemistry produces nitroglycerin, which is basically Bakugo's quirk. So it may be that his quirk is not similar to the quirk of the second user of One for All, simply because there are too many generations between the two, so that the path from the quirk of the second user to Bakugo, if they are related, has undergone so many changes due to mixing of different quirks, that the basic essence may have been lost several generations ago. While we know that both wear gloves, we must note here that the second user's quirk may not be suitable for direct combat, but rather function as something of a support quirk, or did function before it evolved with One for All. We know that the second user of One for All is from the first generation, so mankind still put much value on the power of normal weapons, especially because quirk users were a relatively rare phenomenon, and it was only with later generations that it became the majority. So it is likely that these gloves could simply be a weapon that the second user used in combination with his quirk that may not be suitable for combat. We also know that when Deku was doing his own thing, it almost seemed like the second user was responsible for Bakugo being able to find Deku, which could indicate some sort of connection between Bakugo and the second user. Maybe it has something to do with his quirk, or maybe it has something to do with the time travel theory. Something is definitely going on. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas what his quirk could be. Quick change of location to Toga. There's honestly nothing to say, just a little update on her situation. Tsuyu and Uraraka are facing Toga. Toga insists again that she doesn't need a hero, so they should just leave, but in reality she is crying out to be rescued. Uraraka refuses because she is a hero, symbolically showing that she could become the hero that Toga supposedly doesn't need, but in reality is desperately seeking. It's a very nice symbolic and metaphorical setup if Horikoshi really concludes this Toga Uraraka plot the way we described in our chapter reviews. And as we know, Horikoshi is clearly watching our videos. Toga fights because she's looking for a hero, and Uraraka fights because she is a hero. Perfect match. And then another change of location to Dabi, and with that the finale of the Todoroki family drama has finally begun. Again, there's not too much to say since the exciting part happens next week. Nevertheless, a lot of emphasis was put on the general introduction to the situation between Dabi and Shoto. Flames everywhere, literally a sea of fire. A giant Nomu shows up, and in the midst of it all, Dabi stands like a king. Yo, if Dabi wasn't a villain, this man would be a top model. Everything he does looks like he's doing it for the camera. Perfect shot in every single panel of this goddamn manga. How can someone look so perfect all the time? Dabi revealed that he didn't start doing anything until after the fight in Hosu City, which was the fight against the hero killer Stain. That was at the same time that Dabi was introduced, so it makes sense. And as we know, hero killer Stain made many villains become pros, I guess. Professional villains. Some of them them have always been messed up and evil, but the real villain movement started with Stain. So once again it was confirmed that hero killer Stain influenced Dabi as well. I think even Toga, and honestly many other from the League of Villains. It's crazy that Stain is responsible for so much damage. We see Ida, Shoto and Endeavor's sidekicks, they all gang up on Dabi, but for Dabi only Shoto is important. And then the tension rises as Dabi and Shoto begins the conversation we've all been waiting for so many years. Shoto says that he didn't come for their father, but because he decided to be the one to take him out. Toya replies that this makes him exactly a puppet of his father. He didn't even call Endeavor his own father, though he still refers to himself as Shoto's big brother, as we will see at the end of this chapter. And that's very emotional in my opinion. I really hate the fact that I love Dabi so much, because I have trouble seeing how he will have a happy ending. It's just not going to happen, at least not in a way that will fill my heart with satisfaction. I just understand that even though his traumatic childhood is responsible for his actions in the present, Dabi still did very evil things because of his own choices. And yet he's the victim of his father's tyranny. It's a tragedy, but that's why it's so amazing. My Hero Academia is not my favorite manga, but I must admit that the Todoroki plot is one of my favorite plots, maybe even my favorite. I don't know why, I just love it. I think it's so well done. And it's just one of the side plots. Shoto answers that he will gladly act as a puppet as long as their father can finally take his mind off Toya and continue being the hero he used to be. This shows that Shoto has indeed forgiven Endeavor and that this fight is the final step that must be taken so that Endeavor can be freed from what he has done in the past. While his mistakes will never be forgotten, they will be forgiven. By the way, I still believe in the possibility that Endeavor could somehow be involved in this fight in future chapters. Shoto's ideology of fighting for his own beliefs is used to illustrate the overall situation of this war in My Hero Academia, where unlike many wars in the real world where nameless soldiers act on someone's orders, different individuals fight each other for their own beliefs, ideologies and reasons for their actions. Although the villains fight on the same side, they do not share the values of their comrades, but fight for what they stand for because their beliefs do not conform to the general idea in society. And even the heroes have their own beliefs and goals. This is not a war between all for one and one for all, but between all kinds of different people. Shoto then asks Toya with a sad face why he didn't come back when he was alive all this time, clearly showing that he missed him. And then one of the most emotional moments in manga history happened for me personally. Toya replies that even though he's a villain, he's still his big brother. And that's why he's going to tell him everything. The whole story of how he became Dabi. The reason why his flames never went out and surpassed even those of Endeavor's masterpiece. We see Dabi's skin slowly dissolve into flames, making it clear that this could be Dabi's last battle. He could burn to ashes like a blue flame phoenix. End of chapter. Let me know in the comments what you think of this new My Hero Academia chapter 349. If you like this Boku no Hero Academia manga review, be sure to leave a like, it really supports us a lot. And if you want to see more My Hero Academia content, then make sure to subscribe to our channel with the notification bell activated with weekly My Hero Academia chapter reviews.